Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. As always, I am your host, Rachel Cossar, and today I'm really excited to be joined by the amazing Maureen Metcalfe. Maureen, over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. So, just a little bit about me. I run the Innovative Leadership Institute, and we are about helping leaders innovate how they lead. So, think about how often the leaders we know innovate the core skill of their business. So, technologists get smarter about technology, physicians get smarter about medicine. Often, leaders don't concurrently get smarter about how they lead. And much of the time they spend, and certainly their effectiveness, is about being effective leaders. So that's what we're dedicated to. We just launched a think tank in the last month. So soft launch, we haven't even done anything public yet about it. That focuses on addressing the most pressing issues for leaders right now. So how do we help solve that problem? And so as we go through the questions, I'll pull a little bit of those themes in as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to think about people's typical paths through their careers and then onto that manager leader track in particular, and how things shift to much more complex, kind of broader people oriented issues, right? Beyond the initial scope of your specialty, right? Very, very relevant. All right, well, we're going to get started. So I always wonder if when we use the word like unprecedented, if that's actually the case, or if it just feels so unprecedented because we're living it. But leaders today are facing unprecedented complexity, right? From rapid technological change to shifting workforce expectations, right? I mean, we just came off the pandemic and now we're in this like AI craze. What, in your opinion, makes leadership in this moment different from the past?
So I think part of it is the nature of the problems, as you've talked about, and also the pace. So in the past, leaders could focus on optimizing known systems. So efficiency, scaling, best practices in a relatively stable environment. With continuous disruptions, by the time leaders have a handle on the problems and begin to solve them, the problems have morphed. And so in the role of being a leader, I'm no longer dealing with isolated challenges, technology, culture, geopolitics, talent, ethics, wars, supply chain disruptions. Now a decision made in one domain, so say AI or supply chain, now cascades across my workforce. It impacts trust, gives me regulatory exposure, brand reputation issues, financial performance. So leadership has shifted from controlling and predicting to sensing, sense making, experimentation, and then orchestration or implementation. So as leaders, we can no longer rely on our past experience and our past success, but instead we have to continually unlearn, relearn, adapt in real time, often with limited information and lack of clear precedent.
How much do you feel that the virtual environment impacts that or aspects of that?
Do you mean working virtually or all of the social media stuff?
I think specifically this channel, like video being a big channel of communication now.
You know, I'm a big fan of being able to work virtually. One, extreme introvert, so happy to do this.
Yes.
But think about all the things that wouldn't have been possible. I wouldn't have accepted an invitation to then take a day to fly to where you were, a day to prep, a day to fly home. This is an hour and a half commitment, 2 hours with prep. There are so many things we're able to do, but it does again increase the velocity and what I have access to. And using AI, which I'm a big user of, I'm now doing things I never imagined I would do, not in the inappropriate sphere, but like what we're doing with the think tank. This morning, I spent time revising our charter to allow organizational fellows, look at sponsorship, look at guardrails, things that I would have had to take days to research. I've now done in hours. And I think that is impacting the velocity of change.
Yeah.
Just like your parents probably came home from work with a briefcase, not a laptop, and they would write things out and mail them. Now everything is instant.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think the virtual channel, right, the activation of the virtual channel, which really occurred mostly or accelerated during the pandemic, sometimes becomes the scapegoat for a lot of issues, communication issues or collaboration issues or whatever. So it's interesting, and I appreciate it because I'm also a huge fan and supporter of the capacity that we unlock with a virtual or at least hybrid way of working together. But the velocity point is so right. It's like now advances in technology on the AI side have unlocked this unprecedented velocity, but then so has the fact that we can just jump on a quick Zoom and have like a meaningful conversation as well. Very interesting. So in this context of leaders having to really evolve to meet these complex challenges, are there specific skills or mindsets that you find leaders really need to develop to stay effective in this type of environment?
So I love that you bring up the term mindsets, because I love the idea of mindsets before skills, because if I only learn how to do something in a context, when my context changes, I may be ill-equipped. So in that vein, I think mindsets are crucial. So a few, and there are several. One is systems thinking. So we talked earlier about the interdependencies. We no longer see kind of a linear cause and effect. Everything is intertwined. Learning velocity. I've called it the mind of the scientist for a long time. That instead of having answers, I have to be able to have the right question, formulate a hypothesis, conduct experiments, well-structured experiments so I don't blow up my business. So testing my assumptions, and then learning from that and either scale or course correct or run new experiments. And then the next is decision velocity and quality. How do I make decisions, make sense of what's happening, and then make decisions with absolutely incomplete information, but ensuring that they're ethical? Human technology fluency, so understanding how humans and AI integrate. And I think that's going to be much more important as we go forward, as leaders will be leading. The term hybrid isn't going to mean in the office or at home. It's going to mean hybrid workforce. How many agents do I have working for me? How many humans? How do they work together? And then the other one I would add is the bucket of human skills. We're still leading human workforces that are going to be upended at a pace that we have never seen. And so how do we help people who are showing up to work to do their best job navigate the impact AI is going to have on the workforce, their sense of self as their roles are changing and evolving, how they navigate conflict, because the changes will certainly create conflict. So there are a set of skills in addition to AI skills. And then another one's going to be risk management, that through every step of this transformation we're on, each of us will have personal risk and organizational risk. And a simple one that probably, hopefully, most people have mitigated for is if I go use OpenChat GPT, I'm now sharing any information I input publicly if I don't have a subscription. Well, how many people are using AI at home and accidentally or on purpose put work information in to get a better decision, and yet now they're exposing data? We have risk all over the place. And so, especially as leaders, we need to understand the range of risks and mitigate them without locking down creativity and human engagement.
Yeah, there's a lot in what you said that's really interesting that we could really expand upon. I think your point about human skills, I think, is particularly powerful because there's such a draw, I think, understandably now for people to really focus a lot of skills development on like AI related tasks or, these agent workflows and things like that. And of course, since it's going to be such a big part of the future, like that's necessary. But at the same time, I do feel, and a big part of the work that we do at Virtual Sapiens is helping provide people with a safe space to practice some of the really difficult conversations that are already a big part of their jobs, but will increasingly become so because we're already dealing with the theme of this whole conversation is this like very complex world with very new problems that we don't actually have experience in dealing with, right? So I think that in combination with what you mentioned earlier of, leaders have to make strong decisions quickly with limited information and possibly context, right? Having a sound toolkit of strong communication skills, collaboration skills, right? An ability to, or even just a strong set of values that can help guide you, given the fact that like you're just not going to have all the information that you would like to have before you make a decision, right?
Generally, we don't. And yet, as leaders, our organization counts on us making those decisions that have to be made and having the capacity to know which ones I can walk back or refine.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. And so this brings us to our next question. So the demands on leaders today are evolving and are new, and yet many organizations still rely on these traditional leadership models or frameworks, right? Where do you feel some of these traditional models fall short when dealing with this like new world of complex and interconnected problems?
So let's go back to where we started, that the traditional models were designed for fairly predictable environments. They emphasize hierarchy, control, and linear planning. And that was the right model for the entire Industrial Revolution. So that created stability and predictable outcomes. The problem is, again, the unprecedented complexity and velocity have now rendered that model of predictable environments outdated. And so in this environment of complexity, authority doesn't equal insight. Speed may matter more than perfection, and collaboration outperforms command almost always. So these legacy models tend to slow decision making, suppress dissent and ideas, and cause people to over rely on past patterns. So in our current reality, then, leaders need to ask better questions, run intelligent experiments. So this is back to the mind of the scientist, integrate those insights, systems thinking across the entire system. So I'm not solving an AI problem. I'm solving a business problem where AI is a factor. So the gap shows up most clearly with this digital transformation and AI. Organizations right now are putting a lot of money into technology, but they're not equally investing in helping their leaders evolve. So adoption stalls, there's mistrust, there's fragmented execution, and ultimately the return on investment for that AI investment is in some cases dramatically negatively impacting engagement and trust. So the productivity I gain on one side is offset on the other. And so it's not that the AI is the problem, it's the integration of AI leaders' implementation. In one way, this is the biggest change management experience that we will see over our careers.
I feel like it's so funny because I feel like, COVID was that too, right? Like, that was like the most alarming, rapid, overnight almost shift in every worker's experience, right? Like, and now this, it just, right? It feels like a lot. And so how do you develop that? How do you develop these skills and these mindsets in leaders?
I would say, just like if I wanted to practice golfing, I would, one, have a practice. Two, I would do it consistently. So I'm building new skills. When I learned to drive, I went to driver's training. I'm doing this because I was 10 and 2. I was looking over my shoulders. I was practice, so I didn't hit something. And as a bad driver at 16, I probably did hit things. I pulled forward instead of backing up and went over a median strip. Little things, but as leaders, we haven't built the time in our schedule to learn, unlearn, have a safe place, like you're talking about, to just do the drills. I've got a conversation tomorrow. I'm giving difficult feedback. Let's run through it over and over until I build the confidence, not just the competence to do it. And we often run through something once. I've looked at my questions. I'm ready to go. And don't include in our time management how long it takes to really be good at a new skill. And consequently, we're not. And we adversely impact the result we're trying to create because of that.
It's like, I'm like, we're definitely going to have to highlight that clip because so obviously, right, so much of what we advocate for at Virtual Sapiens is adopting more of a culture of practice and repetition to really build new behaviors that support you, right? My background is as a professional ballet dancer. And all we do is rehearse, right? And train. And so that you can then walk on stage in front of thousands of people and lights and costumes and anything can go wrong. And you will be able to move forward with the choreography because it's so much of a part of you, right? So I just think the challenge is like how, when people are already so busy, how do they carve out this time?
Let me go back to one other thing that you just sparked. When you went out on the stage, there were tape spots, there were all kinds of systems that also reinforced your doing well. So there was the practice, there was the coach, there were all of the people that helped you get there. And the stage was set up and lit for your success. What we haven't done, I think that you highlighted earlier, is this idea that the models are set up, the performance management system, the reward systems, all of that is also set up for the old way of being in the world. So one, the organization needs to change. And that, I think, interconnects with how do I make time? If I am more efficient because I'm using AI, which I am, I have two choices. I can fill that time and do more stuff, which is often what I choose to do. There's also, I can take a bit of that time saving and reinvest in learning more. So I think if AI is actually making us more efficient and productive, harvesting the productivity gains allows us to make some of that time. It's also protecting it as a priority.
So there's, again, a little bit of like a mindset shift in addition to being able to harness some of these efficiencies for the benefit of our development as leaders, right? So yes, I agree. Hopefully that would be nice.
And you've talked about the work you do. I was talking to a senior executive in the AI space, and not to create fear, but if we don't invest in ourselves, we are competing with people who are. And those people will be the people that get the advantage. We should, in some cases, be both incredibly optimistic that the problems that are going to get solved in our lifetime are massive, but we will also have a lot of people left behind because they aren't staying current and investing in themselves every single day. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, practice something on AI, practice a new skill, work with you and build capacity, but it's an everyday thing, just like I work out every day.
Yeah, absolutely. You came out with an article recently in Forbes. Would you mind just summarizing and explaining the 7-step? Yeah.
I'll go quickly. So a lot of these are things we've already talked about. So starting with purpose, value, and norms. So do I have an AI strategy that I'm trying to perform to versus we just learned about Copilot and everyone has it? Second, ethical guardrails give us speed over time. So governance, decision rights, human oversight, all of those things allow us to adopt more quickly and avoid some of the major pitfalls. Third is building leadership with AI literacy and concurrently. So externally, I understand systems. Internally, I am developing myself as a stronger leader who can do things like you've talked about, have ethics and courage and learning agility and the ability to have difficult conversations, collaboration, those individual skills, human skills. Prepare data and risk foundations. Engage people early to build trust. So address workforce concerns. Reinforce the value of human contribution. Next, number 6, manage AI as a disciplined portfolio. So anyone who's managing a financial portfolio, your 401k and K bank account, and you may have some gold or Bitcoin, you level up and down each investment based on its performance, and you exit things that aren't working. Similarly, with AI investments, how are we ensuring that we're putting our energy, not even money, but that's also important, but human energy into the right projects and pulling people out of the wrong projects? And then the last one may be the most important. And that's, once I've gotten more efficient and effective with all the old school stuff, what business does this open me up to be in? And taking a defensive posture, is the business I'm in now even going to exist in a year? You know, we're talking about or watching on the news the impact of AI on software companies, that 12 months ago, if I were doing a startup, I would get angel investing funds. I would spend a year doing early pilots. I can do a lot of that with AI in a week. That completely blows up a lot of everyone in that value chain. Now, as we think about every value chain in the world, where are they just being crumpled up like a little cup, right? It used to be this long and now it's this. And whose business gets eliminated and whose business has the opportunity to change dramatically to do things that we didn't think were possible.
Right. It's fascinating. Those are such big questions that I think, just really capture this level of uncertainty that we're all having to deal with today. So as we wrap up, Maureen, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience? And also, if the audience wants to follow more of your work, and if you have other publications coming out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably right now, just LinkedIn. Follow me as Maureen Metcalfe. We have a newsletter, and I think you can find it if you follow me, because we publish weekly. Like you, we do a podcast. We have a blog. This think tank that we're launching will launch there. We're revamping all of our technology. So in a month, follow us at innovativeleadershipinstitute.com, but we're not there yet. And what I would say to leaders is the work you do impacts the future of our world. Staying current, staying ethical and positive changes the outcomes of the humans in our world. The world we live in fundamentally is better with ethical, high integrity, committed people who are looking at creating the best world we can create.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great message. And I want to thank you, Maureen, for taking the time and sharing your insight with us. Absolutely so much to think about, and so many more questions, I think, to ask and to think about too. So thank you so much for joining. And as always, thanks to our audience for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rachel.